So welcome everybody. I think this is working. How are you? This is the first provocative lecture of the semester. We've got 2 more lined up for you. And you know what? They're all with wonderful CEOs and founders of their companies who are now engaged in social entrepreneurship, coming up with ideas to help our lives be better. If you're a low-income worker, our current speaker will be talking about his new company, his new venture, to help the poorest of the poor make ends meet and get ahead. What we can do as individuals in a private sector as opposed to government. You see the announcement for Andrei Andrzejewski, who will be here next month on October 10th. He's a CEO founder who's now on a mission to make sure that every dime that the government spends is put online so that you, the people, can observe and hold them accountable. And finally, our last provocative lecture speaker of this semester will be Howard Root, another CEO and founder of a medical device company. And he's going to tell you a tragic story about FBI investigation. And because of his efforts and the efforts of his company, he was able to push back against erroneous charges. And that helps all of us when we hold our public officials accountable to the rule of law. So to begin, you need to turn off your cell phones. So I appreciate that you're all going to put them away, lock them up, put them away. No beverages, please, inside this auditorium. Water is the only exception. Please know that it is our tradition to host a barstool meeting. This lecture series is called the David S. Saurman Provocative Lecture Series. One thing you should know about David S. Saurman, he enjoyed time talking with students with beer, pizza, and conversation. So you're welcome to join us at Flames, and we'll sit around and talk with you. Maybe I can do some advising on careers. It's a chance to get to know your professors and one another. So join us at the end of this conversation, at the end of our discussion. I'm calling it a conversation because our speaker, Safwan Shah, a CEO and founder of a credit card, not a credit card, never mind, I'm not going to say that because I lost my documents. A founder of a very successful company that got sold, and then he spent his time playing golf. Why golf? Because it uses up a lot of the day. And he would spend his time saying, I don't need anything, I don't want anything, I can just spend all my life enjoying life, until he decided that that was boring and that there was something more to do, something that he saw all around when he was growing up in Pakistan. All of his people that he met and saw, the lowest income people, needed a break. So I'm going to let Safwan tell you how he went on that journey. How he came up with the question, what can a private firm do for the poor without involving government regulation? And tell you about the incredible challenges of not just inventing something, but then convincing the firms to use it. Is it a success? I guess if you're going to call competition a success, he's got 3 new firms coming up that are competing against his because he made the market. And these firms are in there competing. So there's a lot more to know about him. I'm going to let him tell you. Please welcome our guest, Safwan Shah, who is a PhD in aerospace engineering, has worked at NASA, and has given lectures at the Haas Business School. Thank you, Safwan.
Thank you, Professor Ortega. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. My name is Safwan Shah. And gosh, this room has filled up. And did I hear you say that there will be beer and pizza after I finish?
Yes, definitely. It's free.
So you know what they're doing right now, what's going on in their mind. It's just me between beer and pizza, right? Get rid of him, and there's beer and pizza and bar stools. So there is a bit of a, a serious note that I want to accomplish today. I also want to take you through a journey through America in some ways, because I've had the privilege, the opportunity of making that journey. When you live in California, then the rest of United States is actually something that you don't need to go to. When you go to Mississippi, or you go to Columbus, Georgia, or you go to Arkansas, Birmingham, Alabama, West Virginia, Colorado, parts of California itself, you see an America which sometimes we don't know about. So I've been in the US for 30 years. This is my 30th year. I came here into graduate school. I went to a school in Boulder, Colorado. And I was there for 5 years. And when I graduated 5 years later with a PhD in aerospace engineering, I thought life was made. I had a ponytail. I was in a Honda Accord driving to California. And I was going to work for IBM. So life was swell. And, so this is how I arrived in California. It was 24 years ago. And I've been in Silicon Valley ever since. So, so I just wanted to tell you a little bit of these kinds of things. And if it's okay, you're okay to laugh after 5 p.m., right? That's okay, so you're allowed to laugh if I crack a joke, which is laughable. If it isn't, you're still allowed to laugh. And so, as I said, I want to touch on a few serious items. But at the same time, I want to appeal to your inner youth, your ingenuity, your ability to create and challenge the status quo. And also I want to kind of, in some ways, help you remember and recognize that what it is like to be in Silicon Valley and in America, where you can do practically anything, where you can change the world, you can certainly change the community you're in, you can certainly change a lot, because just by being part of this country and part of the ecosystem of Silicon Valley, there's no limit. So as Dr. Ortega described, I had another company in the past. I started it in the late 90s. After I arrived here, I tried to do various things. I could never really get a job because although I did cut the ponytail and I never tattooed myself, but I still couldn't get a job that I really liked. So I never really worked for anyone. And since most of my friends were working and doing well while I was getting a PhD, I got left behind. And because of that, I had to take more chances in life. And consequently, I became an entrepreneur. So I always call myself an accidental entrepreneur. My reason, I just read with great fascination or watch with great fascination some of the stories of great entrepreneurs. Or, I did this, and I was there. Nothing like that happened to me. Nothing happened. It just all happened by itself, accidental, circumstantial. But there was one thing that I really wanted to do. I wanted to be able to do things which were exciting. So I had a good 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years working in the Valley in the company that I built in the past. And in 2009-10, I sold it, and I became rich, or at least by my terms. And I said, to hell with it, I'm done with it. I don't need to work, because when I was growing up, I was told 3 or 4 things. You need to get to the highest level of education. That was checked off. You needed to have a job and whatever, and enough money to feed your children, and you should be able to retire and all that. I had enough money. Any car I could buy, any silly thing I could buy. I had a house. So I had really nothing left, no new target. And I was quite young, actually. And I had no targets because I never had a passion. Some of you might have a purpose or a passion. I had nothing like that. I had to study, and I had to get the highest degree, and so on and so forth. So when all that was achieved, at least in my head, there was only one little thing left in my mind. Berkeley had not given me a scholarship, and I had been trying to get into Berkeley when I was young, and I was a teenager. And I was living in Karachi, Pakistan. Anyone from Pakistan here? They don't get visas anymore. Anyone from India here? few people from India. Yeah, we're the same people. So what happened is that Berkeley did not give me a scholarship, so I could not come to Berkeley. And when I came to the Valley and I had done all this stuff, I said, I want to teach at Berkeley. So I became adjunct faculty at the Haas School of Business. So this kind of environment of teaching, and I've been there, done it, it's kind of fun. So I used to teach the MBAs. I taught entrepreneurship and innovation. So I taught in two different places, UC Santa Cruz and where I taught the undergrads, and then Haas School of Business at Berkeley, where I taught entrepreneurship and innovation and venture finance. So the reason I want to bring up a few of these things here is that I'm kind of part academic, part teacher. Some would say I'm an entrepreneur. But now, after this sort of journey, after having some success, where I am today is where I now want to start. Now, this is going to get a little bit serious. So, when all that you have aspired to achieve and you've achieved it, you do not have any goals in life. And that is why Dr. Ortega said that I ended up on a golf course, because after a little while, even Starbucks is a very painful place to be. And I used to go and sit in a Starbucks, and people would pitch me ideas, and I kind of looked at them, why are you doing this? I don't want another social network. There's another Internet of Things, another, whatever. I don't care. I'm not interested in all this. And ended up on a golf course because it takes away 4 or 5 hours on the golf course and then a couple of hours in the bar and then so on and so forth, and you just go home, crash, and go to sleep. And believe it or not, I played about 330 days out of 365 and broke every bone in my body. And while you play golf, you run into a lot of people, and most of them are very successful, strangely enough. Well, not strangely, only people with time can play golf. And many of them were bankers and VCs, and if people think that you really don't need anything, they want to give you everything. I don't know if you've experienced that. Right? It happens, right? I'm not the only one that feels that. So if you don't ask for anything, they don't think you're going to ask for anything, they'll offer you a lot of things. So just keep it as a lesson. So they would always ask me that you're always available. Is there anything you want to do? And the idea I was always enamored by, and because I came from a different part of the world, was something that I wanted to do, and I wanted to tell people about that idea. So today what I'm going to do here is, I'm going to take you through that journey, the whole process of getting to yes, the getting to yes moment, that I'm going to do this. And that's how, so at this point, that's what I want to kind of leave you here, that I am, I've got a lot of time, I'm swinging the club, playing golf. People are saying, hey, why don't you do something with your life? You're reasonably young, and you seem to be reasonably intelligent, and why don't you go ahead and do something? And you are trained, and a lot of people will invest in you. So I always thought that if I started something and I wasn't passionate about it, then it won't work. And I want to kind of leave this word passion and purpose and all that. I'll leave them as with a bold highlight quote on it, because it's kind of important. My biggest fear was that what will make me leap out of bed every morning? And somebody in the morning, Dr. Ortega was kind enough to invite me to a luncheon reception, and somebody just came up to me and said, what is an entrepreneur? And my answer was, and I always give it to people, and I'll give it to you also right here. At the end of the day, does anyone here feel like an imposter? You're my kind of a guy. Do you ever have low self-esteem, or you're too scared to admit it? An entrepreneur is that person who has low self-esteem and who feels like an imposter. Now, they don't know that. What that does is they're desperate people. They're usually desperate, not in a bad way, but they don't know what is causing it, but something's causing them to go and take be not afraid of taking risks. So the first thing I told them that to be an entrepreneur, you have to have a certain amount of desperation within you, which stems from low self-esteem or an imposter phenomenon. The second thing is they have an innate ability to get inspired every day. Do all of you wake up, gung-ho every morning? Yay, today is Monday. Do you feel that way? But if you got that somehow, somehow I could invent, or one of you who's very brilliant could upgrade you to have a little transplant where you could get that every morning, you'd pay for it, right? I mean, it sure beats the other iPhone to kind of make cool music or whatever in the morning. Sure beats that. That's something inspiring that happens, that you just leap out. And so inspirations. So they get inspired every day by something. The third thing is that they have ability to finish things, execute. So there are 3 alphabets, I say, that are always there. And this happened this morning, so I remembered it. So what are the 3 alphabets? Desperation, inspiration, and execution. Somebody got it. Good, D-I-E. So on that happy note, I will now take you through a journey through America. Is anyone here, are all of you economists? Business majors. What exactly is a business major? You all have businesses? You aspire to have businesses? Right? Fantastic. I arrived in the US in 31st December 1988. How many were born before that? No, please don't tell me. And the GDP, actually the debt of United States was, what do you think the debt of United States was in 1988? $2.7 trillion. What is the US debt today? It's just 29 years. 21 trillion. Every year that I've been here, I mean, they couldn't even make $1 trillion a year. Gosh. Okay. Kind of crazy, right? The GDP of the US is 17, 18, right? You take the population, multiply it by $53,000. It's about $18 trillion. So 107% of GDP is the debt. When you have your income is less than your expenses, what happens? You're in debt. It's a beautiful thing, right? Of course, it must be a beautiful thing. Because this is America, the most powerful country in the world. We do this. This is our way. So what do you think the people of America are like? In debt? Because it's a cool thing? Has to be. Because by definition. So, jokes aside, it is actually not a bad thing because business school will teach you, math will teach you, economics will teach you. These are all line items and there are balance sheets and there are ledgers and money can move right, left on that. The reason I bring it up that so these 30 years have been very interesting, that the United States was a $2.7 trillion economy and it's now 2.7 trillion in debt and now it's got 21 trillion in debt. I thought it was important because it tells you how these things grow. Another thing is that people in the US over the years, have taken on more and more debt, and there are a variety of reasons for that. However, the ones that are suffering the most are a certain cross-section of society. So I am going to now, if you see the slide, can you see it? So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to, in the spirit of the person on which this entire talk has been structured, David Saurman. So yesterday, I decided to study his life. And I decided to study the previous provocative lectures. Because what is provocation without a provocateur? And I am that provocateur. I'm not scared, you see. I'm not scared of anyone. And I told that earlier because I'm here to make a difference. And whether it's government or, so not scared in an entrepreneurial sort of a way, right? Not in that I'm not scared of you, I'm very scared of you. But as such, so I want to be the provocateur. How many people can pronounce the word? So it's P-R-O-V-O, so provocateur. So I'll check this French and the English and the British English, all the spellings. And then went to the, so I hope I'm getting it right. Am I getting it right? Yeah. Okay. So by the way, the red thing, the red box on the left is my, the title of my book that's going to come out very soon. And on the right is just something that I think is cool. So I always put it. The longer we wait, the more we lose. You know, kind of one of those meme things. It just gets me going. So it's got no relevance. So what makes a good provocateur? First of all, it's a negative word. Somebody who goes and, provokes people into doing something usually is not a good thing, right? In America, it's a good thing. In England, it's a bad thing because that's Queen's England. What do you think makes a good provocateur? My observation. A big wrong that can be fixed. If you find a big wrong somewhere and it hasn't been fixed or it hasn't been even addressed, you want to provoke some reaction from people. You want to tell them to, come on, guys. Like, are there among you people who kind of are the galvanizers, right? There's someone among you when you do in your project meeting, there's someone who starts things, who started the fire. There's one of you who is the catalyst, the igniter, that kind of a person. So I look at it in a positive way. So there has to be something. So for me, in my sort of very comfortable life, to and from golf courses, I needed something big that would make me leap out every morning, right? We go back and connect the dot there. And I needed something big that moved me to action. And my entire thinking was that, why am I in America? And I realized that I'm in America because it's the greatest country. And I grew up in Pakistan. And but why am I in America? I'm here to go to graduate school. Okay, got that done. Why am I in America? To have a job and make money? Done. Why am I in America? To play golf and chill out and act smart? No. My kids are here, they're growing up. I have to find a purpose. So I would go to Santa Cruz, and there was this friend of mine who used to do my taxes, and he would say, so I used to say, all charity has to go to the US. Anything that I do will be for a US cause. Not because I have any such, but I thought that, I have to do things. I have to kind of do things around me. And in this whole process, the thing that did it for me was this realization that the richest country in the world, the most powerful country in the world, has this very strange and dangerous situation. And this was about 5-6 years ago. This was post 2008-9 when the economy collapsed. And that I felt that it's like, what do parents say to their children most of the time? Listen, whatever you do, just don't underperform. Don't underachieve in life. Realize your potential. And that's something that I've grown up with, that whatever you do, doesn't matter, but don't underachieve. And I felt that we were underachieving. Because how can the richest country in the world have such a huge problem of lower income people? Which I felt was all over the country. And I couldn't figure out why. And these statements here are actually from Peter Georgescu, who's written a book, which is actually in the corner, if you can see that. Capitalists Arise. So he's actually a financial guy and all that, and he wrote these lines which are here, which I thought was very interesting, that how can a country so powerful, so rich, so successful have this kind of inequality? And we've talked about it, people talk about it, I won't dwell on it. There was a lecture here in this, I think last year, where somebody was, and I saw a few of the lectures of the Provocative series, so I know that it has been discussed on these issues of, but do you get it, that revolutions can happen, not that I want to use that word, but people react eventually if there is inequity or inequality. And in a system like capitalism, inequality shouldn't happen in this form because the opportunities always are enough or are being created so that people can get to do things. So I thought it was a big deal. So I thought, let me address this problem. And because I was studying all the economic data of the US, what I realized is that maybe therein lies the real problem. And what it turned out to be is that in the US, there are, what is the working population of the US? What is the population of the United States? 330 million. About 146 million people are employed. About 6 million are in the agriculture industry. 140 million is the workforce. And what percent of those are hourly workers in the US? Take a wild guess. 59%. So 77 million people in the US are hourly workers, which is a pretty significant number. Though this is what they look like. It's a little disconcerting for me to be, but this is, so you get it, right? Has anyone here worked hourly? A lot of you have. So there's a little trick question, maybe not a trick question, maybe you know it, because why is September bad compared to August for people who are hourly workers? Or this September is going to be very bad, and August was really nice for those who work hourly and work, regular 8-hour shifts. No. I asked this of economists, I've asked this of CEOs, I've asked this to a lot of people, and it's something that people have ignored. So September is a 19-day work month. 10 weekend days and 1 Labor Day. And August was a 23-day work month. 8 weekend days and no holidays. 31 less 8 is 23 days. So if you are an hourly worker, you will make how much less in September compared to August? Will you be paying less rent? Is your cable bill going to be less? No. As you read through these things and you go back and you dwell on these things, just check this out, the impact of irregular schedules on people's lives. And it is amazing that many people have not studied this issue. They have studied it, but it's not understood very well. So this is America. 59% people are hourly workers. So that means they got paid 10% less, unless they were like high-profile contractors for somebody. They pay about $170 billion in fees every year. 77, and it's really spread on 140 million people, but if I ask you, most of you, you'll say, has anyone here had a late fee? Is anyone here courageous enough to admit that they've paid a late fee? Wow. Has anyone, do you have a bank account? Have you done an overdraft? Maybe not. You're living it, good. And, these $170 billion are accumulated by the combination of late fees and overdrafts and subprime loans. And has anyone taken a title loan here? You have? Title loan is where you take your car and, yeah. So title loan is where you give title to your vehicle because that's the biggest possession of most people who are lower income, a car. They'll give the title of the car and they'll get cash against it. So you can get up to $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. And then about 30, 40% of those cars are repossessed. It's a cool business. In certain states where payday loans are not allowed, title loans are allowed. So a lot of people are, so these are the fees. Does anyone here pay a fee for their checking account? There you go. So you put the money in the bank and you pay a fee for putting money there. And why are you doing that? You need to change your bank. But you're not alone. You're not alone. Please, please don't be lonely. Don't feel lonely. $9 billion were paid last year because people had balances below $1,500. This is America. Who has to, do you pay your rent through money orders sometimes because your check is not good? Okay. So this is how this money comes together. There's one very sort of reviled part of this financial industry called payday loans. Anyone taken a payday loan? You're too young to do that. But that's a very small, tiny thing, actually, in the scheme of things. It's about $6 to $7 billion in fees. So these are the people who collect these fees. By the way, this $170 billion is not going to the banks. It's alternative financial services. Because most of the people who are lower income are not good enough for the banks. Center for Financial Services Innovation, it is part of, it's a investment of JP Morgan Chase, and this is their data. They publish it. It's all on the internet. I won't bore you with the actual data, but the interpretation is what I'm interested to share with you. So these are the various entities which take that. So when I calculated it, and now it's been sort of become part of the system, people agree with it, a lower income person pays $150 a month in various types of penalties and dings. If I take away $150 from you every month, does that not decrease your purchasing power? Like if you didn't have to pay the like what do people tell you? Oh, if you stop paying for your phone, you'll have $100 more, that kind of a thing. So if I took away $150 from you, it's like a tax. You've been taxed. So I thought about it a lot, and I kind of, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I said, you know, America hates taxes. So let's give it a name. So we called it a financial tax. Then I looked around for, for trademarking and all that. Finally, we got FinTax. Fin-tax is our trademark. So we said there's a financial tax, and I tried to get an op-ed in Wall Street Journal, but that op-ed came out that there is a bad, tax system and so on and so forth. But we have a name called FinTax for it, and I'll use that FinTax. So the FinTax is this $150 every lower income person is paying every month, which is reducing their purchasing power. If I could take away that $150 somehow away from their lives, they would have another $150. So if you are earning about $2,000 a month or $2,500 a month, $150 is a significant chunk, change for you. So now let's take America as a whole. So to me, I'm getting to the big problem, right? The problem that will make me leap out of bed every morning and get into my slippers and run and try to do something. That's what I'm getting to. So the big problem is this. There are 77 million people who work in the United States. They pay over $1,800 every year or $150 every month between paychecks, usually a 2-week cycle, for amounts less than $500. Have you had a cash flow crunch? By the way, I've been poor. Not like abject poor, but I've been a graduate student. I've had my share of living life. So does anybody here know what it feels like when you really need $20? And when you go and ask someone and you plot and plan and connive and somehow slyly get that $20 from someone else? I mean, all of you are perfect, but some of us have done that. How do I call so-and-so and say, listen, I need $20? Because what will they give you? Right after you ask them for $20, what do they give you? A lecture. Oh, you're terrible. How will you do this? You're a loser. And the irony of it all is that the banks charge their overdraft fees because people are short by $8. So this is what it turns out, that people are losing $150 every month, which is kind of bizarre. So there is a lot of financial stress. I think that people feel, sometimes they feel shame. Sometimes it's an issue of dignity. When I was hard up at a point in my life, I used to make about $1,140 a month. I was a graduate student, a PhD student. I took another job, so I was a research assistant and a tutor, so I used to get $1,400. Due to certain circumstances in my life, I used to get left with $450 a month to live on. And I didn't have parents to call and say, hey, listen, you know, that happened, or my good uncle and bad uncle and all that. I didn't have all that. And I couldn't even work on campus because I was a foreign student. So not do many things. I could only work 20 hours. So there was this huge challenge that how would I make my ends meet? So, and I was in this pickle, so-called pickle, where I could only, I only had $450 a month. So I remember it was very hard. And then every now and then when I could get a friend to send me money or help me out, that was a pretty big deal. It's like the law of marginal utility. You've read that? You know that? You'd give an arm and a leg for the first glass of water, but not that much for the second. So the cost of financial stress is very high. A lot of people have studied it. My company PayActiv, its website is full of data, and like every reporter has discovered it in America these days. Everyone's writing, Wall Street Journal, everyone's writing about the cost of financial stress. Like 90 million people don't have $400 in an emergency in the US, that kind of stuff. So it's a very high cost. So who's paying that cost? Businesses in America. So Mercer, some of you may be familiar with the name of Mercer. It's a very big retirement, wealth planning, consulting organization. So they, as we all know, the US economy is about an $18 trillion economy. And you know how much of it is payroll, annual payroll? It's about $5 trillion. Of that $5 trillion, Mercer says 5% is wasted entirely. Why? People are absent. So this is a natural consequence. You know, people are not going to be productive 24 hours a day or whatever time it is. So that is totally wasted because they are financially stressed and they are distracted. And they have more accidents on the job. They will go more to counselors. They will go more to hospital, so on and so forth. And that number, when you take it out, is disproportionately applied to the lower income people. So about $250 billion is the cost to businesses. They're giving the money to the employee, but the employee is distracted and not able to perform at work because they're stressing out about issues related to money. So there are two costs that were there. So this is now, my mind is working on this, so I'm saying there's a big problem. We can do something about it. So $250 billion being paid by businesses, $170 billion being paid by the workers in America. That seems like a reasonably large opportunity, right? So I said, okay. Luckily, SoftBank, which is a large private investor in the US, I knew somebody, they were very kind to me, they gave me money, and I put some money and the company started, 2013. So this is a big problem. Because of this, many are disenfranchised, disillusioned, angry. Some are even hopeless. That, hey, how am I going to get out of this rut? Like, you know, jobs are moving to different parts of the world. Robots are coming. You know, Facebook is so cool, I don't want to leave it. And what am I supposed to do with my day? Right? It's a big challenge. Like, you know, you said that other people can take the job too. It's just a complex scenario for most people. You can get very angry, very disillusioned. So my first observation, there is a third world in the belly of America. So you know where the word third world comes from? Do you know that there is a word called third world? You know where it comes from? So 30, 40 years ago, there were two worlds. There were two worlds. Either you were with America that was first world or Europe. Or you were with Russia, that means second world. Or you were with neither, that means you're a third world country. So when the wall and all that came down, it kind of made no sense. So there are a lot of people in America, actually, and I do it in tongue-in-cheek also, and I say it. I don't mean third world in that sense. They're in the third world because they don't get it. Who's there? Who are they supporting anymore? The government and the various parties, to me, they don't make any sense anyway. So who's going to help them? They have to help themselves in many cases. So there is a third world in the belly of America, people who are saying, where is the opportunity for us? Because things have changed so badly over the last, for a certain segment of the workforce. So I'll leave it at that. You can question me later on. Second thing I wanted to point out, second observation was that America's challenge is financial exclusion. If you've studied a bit of social entrepreneurship, as I believe, so you're familiar with this term called financial inclusion. Are you familiar with that? So there is this thinking in America and in the Western world that if the poor people of this world had affordable financial services and they were part of the financial system, somehow all their ills will go away. Which is kind of flawed because it is based on this notion that you give people bank accounts and they suddenly come into mainstream society. I don't know if that is true. Maybe you don't need a bank. In fact, by the way, you're not allowed to use phones here, but if you had a phone and you went to www.notabank.com, nottabank.com, that's our website. I just think that somebody has to have a counter argument, and we'll do something on it one day. So financial inclusion is this notion that people in Africa and India and other people should be brought into the mainstream banking system, and that way they can get loans, etc. The whole society can progress. In the US, people were part of the financial system. In the last 20, 30, 40 years, the problem is financial exclusion. People have been squeezed out of the financial system. Many of you can actually live off a Visa card, right? That debit card on which you can get your salary, you can get it in 7-Eleven, etc., except it has its own set of fees. So there's a whole world here in America, and I think the problem is financial exclusion, and nobody's talked about it. And I think it has to be brought up. Another thing is that we keep talking about that, payday loans, and everyone gets all riled up about payday loans. Maybe it's a horrible product. But I think taking $25 billion from the lower income workers, and if I take your $30 with some ingenuity, right, some craftiness, some creativity, I swipe your wallet or I do a little performance and you gave me $30, it's still good. But you know how the banks take it out of your wallet? You know how? They have algorithms. Those algorithms are figuring out which person will be the most susceptible. So if you deposit 2 checks and you write 1 check, they will clear the check that you've written so that your money goes down and you get dinged. And then there's software that's built. I've been part of those meetings where such software is deployed in companies. So robots are taking money out of your pocket, which I think is not that cool. And then banks can't make money on anything else. Interest rates are very low. So what do? They kind of ding you for fees and so on. And I'm not against banks. I'm just saying that they should find creative ways to make money. So given this, how does a solution come about? What is the genesis of a solution? By now you know that I'm an engineer. You also know that I'm an entrepreneur, a reluctant one. I'm certainly not an economist, which many of you are here, and I never had a business degree or went to business school until very late in my life. So what does an engineer do in a situation like this? Anyone here an engineering student ever? Right? Okay, so you'll appreciate it. Remember calculus? We go to basics, right? What do you do when you're an engineer? You go back to basics. And in fact, in everything, you go back to basics. That's all I have learned in life, that if you can't solve something, you go back to basics, whether it's music or art or whatever, go back to your basics. So that's what I did. And I had my own Viktor Frankl moment, which I always, who's read Viktor Frankl here? Did it move you? moved you literally to pieces, right? Those, yep. So come back to it 10 years later, okay? And every decade come back to it. That book has to be read every 10, 15 years. So I had my own I won't tell you, you need to go and read. I mean, it's 100 pages, and you're in a library right next door, just read it. So I had my own Viktor Frankl moment, which is really a moment where you find meaning and purpose. So suddenly I knew what to do. I knew how to leap out of bed, and now I was going to solve this problem. And what do you do when you want to solve a problem? I went to my basics, which is watch a movie, read some history, go to calculus, some economics. As you grow older, you kind of get interested in economics for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, why am I interested in economics? And you certainly care for injustice and things like that. It's just one of those things in life. So I did that, and I went to calculus. And suddenly something dawned on me. This is that, moment, and I want to share this moment with you. So your business, and you know all these things. Some are economists here. So what are the variables available? So calculus is about math, and calculus is that segment of math in which there is differentiation and integration, which basically is the rate of change of things. Rate of change of flow of water, rate of change of automobiles, etc., etc., etc. That's all it is. They just teach it poorly. That's why people hate it. But that's what calculus is. So I was looking at how people were paid. And anyone here works? Do you work, sir? So you get paid every 2 weeks, right? Once a month. Good. So you get paid once a month. Let's say I'm using that example. So let's say people are paid monthly or bi-monthly or bi-weekly. So what are the variables at play here? The first variable at play is how much you are paid, right? The level of salary. The level of salary is variable one. It's one variable. And does a business have control over it? Kind of. It's really a minimum wage, what should be, there's legalities, whatever. So there's a level of salary debate in this country. If I'm going to talk about the lower income people, I better steer away from that one, whether what the minimum wage should be and so on, right? I couldn't handle that or tackle that problem. So the level was a variable I couldn't mess with. I can't go to an employer and say you have to pay this person less and this person more and the CEO gets more, those kinds of things. So one variable you can play with is level of salary, right? How much you are paid. What is the second variable? The structure of salary. How you are paid, which is taxation. Am I in control of that? I'm an engineer and an entrepreneur, sort of bad economist, so I can't solve that one. How you're taxed, that's not in my control, so I can't do anything with it. There's a third thing that everybody forgot, the timing of pay. When you are paid, people actually look at me and say, but we got paid early. If you pay somebody on the 25th day. Today is the 27th day. Somebody has a 27-day loan from you. So timing of pay has not been addressed at all. And especially, someone who's able to absorb it, has credit, has savings, they can wait for that long. But those people who have very little cushion in life, timing is a variable that is available. And there are rules and regulations which say that you have to pay weekly and bi-weekly and so on and so forth, but timing has never been addressed as a variable, so the calculus helped me find this variable. That's number one. And that moment when I discovered Parson and Wessop's paper, now you'd think, what kind of entrepreneurship is this? But this is what it is. For thousands of years, people have not solved this problem. And I was afraid that I haven't solved it too. I just think I have. But this paper, these guys, one guy was at Harvard and one was at USC, and I called them in 2013. And I said, listen. And he said, well, we wrote a paper that if you people are paid less, then they have to be paid more frequently, and it's in the paper. Because I need to get the math right, because if I build a company and the math is wrong, that would be terrible. I mean, it wouldn't be terrible. You could still become Theranos, but it could be terrible. I don't know if you know what Theranos is. Or you could become a bad product. Or you could be Microsoft, that's a bad product. So so this kind of, I mean, that was an amazing moment when I discovered these guys and I talked to them and they said the math works. Timing has not been addressed as a factor for salary. So if you over there need $20 and you know you're not going to be paid until 2 days later and you've already earned 220, you should be able to get your $20. There should be some system, right? The credit card company gives you a loan and helps you access that money 24/7 on 20 different sites and still it's possible for you to pay your Starbucks on it or buy gas with it. So why can't your salary be a little more liquid? If your employer can't do it, that's okay. But if they can, then it should be liquid. So the second thing that you do when you go back to history. How many of you know of somebody called Arthur Laffer? Do you know the whole story, right? So when Rumsfeld and Cheney met in a restaurant in DC, okay? Yes. So Arthur Laffer's whole thing came from a guy who was in Tunisia. His name was Ibn Khaldun. His picture is up there. And in the 14th century, he wrote a book called the Muqaddimah, which is the trial. And Zuckerberg actually made that book famous because he said everyone has to read that book. So it was a book of governance. And the whole idea was that I have a different twist on it, but Arthur Laffer, in my opinion, did the most, made a big contribution to get that simple thinking out because now reporters could talk about it. So what happened is in 1974 in a restaurant in DC, Donald Rumsfeld and Cheney were worried because Ford was the president and he was raising taxes. And they were concerned that how do we build a narrative so that people can understand that raising taxes is not the only way to do certain things because, there's a certain decorum in communication. So they brought this reporter, I forget the name, Jude something. And they brought this reporter, a smart person, and they also got Arthur Laffer to explain to them. And Arthur Laffer explained to what, Khaldun did 600 years before that, which is very straightforward. That if you taxed people, if you look at this picture, if government taxed everyone 100%, technically there would be nothing to tax, but the government would be very rich and the people would be very poor, right? But that doesn't work. If you taxed people zero, then also there is an extreme case doesn't work. You get it, right? The picture shows it very clearly. So what basically I say is that this is what I call the optimality of pain problem. How much pain do you want to render to people? After which it becomes counterproductive. And there is that some band here, right? Some zone here where the government needs a certain amount of money and the government can decide it needs more or less. But ultimately, the more you tax the people, the more they demand for you to do for them. So it's a vicious cycle. So this is what the Laffer curve was, and it came from history. So I looked at it and I said, if the working people of America, lower income working people of America, how much pain can you give them before they will get very angry? To that extent, I leave it at that because I looked at it, how much can you screw people? Revolutions can happen, right? Anger can become a lot of different things. Nothing that I'm suggesting. A lot of people are writing about it. That you don't go around taking opportunities away or taxing people or so on and so forth. So there's an optimality of pain. So that is what the Laffer curve teaches us. That you have to find a balance in how you extract value from others. Because beyond a certain point, you can't extract any value, right? Have you tried to squeeze a lemon with your hands? Or even in a machine, it's like hard, right? After a point, there's nothing to squeeze out of it. And it can be dangerous. So this is the actual Laffer. This is the picture of the napkin. It's in a museum. And I just love this line that the goal of democracy is not to make every man equal, to make access to opportunity. It's about opportunity. Nobody should be opportunity should not be taken away. So that's the second thing I did. First I went to math, which is calculus. Second thing I did is third thing is I watched a movie. Who's watched in time? This is a world where time is currency. And the cop is called a timekeeper. And we are living in a world where money that you've earned is trapped in the system in a database of time. And it's not fungible. But you've earned it, it's yours. And the indebted chase time, and the creditors own time. That's the world. By the way, these are my words, so I didn't have to cite anyone. Right? So I had to create the vocabulary of this industry. Then I heard a song. You go to music. So my mom used to play this song when I was a kid called 16 Tons. If you haven't heard it, go. It's Merle Travis, 1955. Those who haven't heard it will find it fascinating. 16 tons is the amount of weight a coal miner has to carry. Okay? And this line is very telling. You load 16 tons, what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. And I'm talking about the greatest country, the richest country with all the resources. And I'm not even saying put them on the dole or anything. I'm saying just let them, get their own money. And just to give you some idea, the median salary at Amazon. Anybody knows the median salary at Amazon? Oh, come on. You want to get a job there, don't you? Okay, median. The word median means there are half the number of people are below that number and half the number of people are above that number. Wow. Who was that? 23K. Is he allowed to use his computer? Poverty level in the US is, for a family of 4. You just said it. Yeah. That's America. Median salaries in 2017, and one company is conspicuous by its absence. There are 2 companies which are above $1 trillion. Amazon and Apple. Where is Apple in this? I mean, only 1.5 million people work in China. They've got another billion for them. I don't have a point here, but I'm just saying, 560,000 people work for Amazon. And half of them are at the level of minimum wage or poverty line. I'm not saying that give them, free money. Maybe you open an Amazon University or something. Eureka! So this was complete. The journey was complete. I knew what to do, change the velocity of money for the lower income workers. If I gave you, if you have $100,000 in your bank and I give you $1,000, what will you do with the $1,000? You won't need it, right? You'll bank it. You have enough money. But if you have no money and I give you $1,000, what will you do with it? You'll spend it. So change the velocity of money. There was this famous comedian, Will Rogers, who said that let the money trickles up, money never trickles down. And his example was that the good thing is that if you give money to a poor person, they'll spend it immediately. It will still end up with the rich person by the end of the day because they'll have to spend it. So I'm okay with, money when it comes to lower income people. We need to give some control of the timing to those people so that when they need it, they can access what they've already earned. This is not a dole, not a loan, nothing. It's their money. It's all about time. It's all about timing. So, conclusion number 1, businesses hold the key. The real economy is the businesses. The poor can actually save capitalism. I recommend you read some of these books. There's an amazing book called The Fissured Workplace. You walk into a Best Buy, the person working there doesn't work for Best Buy. It's a contracting company which Best Buy has hired for that person to work. Because there's so many, the environment is so litigious that companies do not want to take ownership of employees. So they don't want to get lower income employees. They fear that they'll do lawsuits or something. So the workplace is fissured. I think there's a time for a new social contract between how businesses interact with employees because it hurts the businesses. Then I come to dictum number 1, which is do unto humans as you would do unto your robot. How many people are missing their phone right now? If you had your phone, how many times would you have checked it? Quite a few. And when you had checked it, how many times would you have checked for how much battery does it have? Probably each time, or maybe every second time. So when it comes to a robot, we are very concerned how much battery does the robot, how much charge does the robot have. But when it comes to human beings, and they say they need money or they have earned it, I mean, well, let me access what I have earned. We judge them, that they are messed up somehow. It's not right, because the robots are coming, and we should be careful. This is the condition of a lot of people in the US. I actually did a seminar on when will you charge your robot, and people started, some people got emotional about it. They had never thought of it that way. But the good news is, the very good news is, are you afraid of robots? You don't need to be. Just treat them how you've treated other human beings. So it's all about opportunity. It's all about opportunity. So what my company does is we turn financial stress into financial wellness. We call ourselves FinTech for ordinary people. We allow people to access half the money that they've earned. So if you've earned 27 days of salary, we don't give more than $500. We only target a lower income segment of society. And we're kind of unique, because all the big questions that were asked of me in the last 5 years, people said, nobody will ever use it. So I actually made a big wall and I put 50 shades of no on it. We've kind of got rid of all the 50 shades. That's also an original line that I use often, 50 shades of no. And I'm just kidding. And the other question they said is that if you're so cool, then Walmart should use it, right? Walmart, that big, ugly behemoth, which hires the most employees in the world, 1.4 million in the US in lower income, 2.3 million internationally. But the good news is Walmart is our customer. We move close to $100 million a month into the hands of lower income employees in the US. It's neither socialism nor capitalism. It's just a cool way to do business, and it helps business. A lot of people said that if you give people money faster, because they always think that payroll is some kind of line on the sand, that something bad will happen. Turns out Harvard did a study, Harvard Kennedy School, and they came out with data, and it got published in the Wall Street Journal 3-4 months ago. And the data said that by using PayActiv, Walmart would save $490 million a year. Gosh, I felt sick. But what a great thing. Target would save $30 million, because when people have access to their money, it's not new money. You're not giving them a loan. You're just improving the way money moves between lower income people and employers. And the counterintuitive thing, which was most amazing, people, if somebody had $500 already earned, say on the 10th of the month, you would expect they'll take all 500, right? They take the least amount of money. It's all about, then I had to study economics. Turns out it's that term called willpower in economics. The willpower you have to exert for 401k is different from savings, it's that kind of a thing. It was I had no idea. Nobody studied all this. And then, of course, that was very good. The biggest payroll company in the US has put us into their system. We won many awards, which is kind of good. So it's a happy story, and it ends with win-win. People who use it like it, employers who use us like us. A lot of people write about us. In this year alone, I've had to speak in about 20 different places. I don't even remember how many places. I've been on a lot of different conversations, and it's just a great time, because this is a best practice now in the US. There are 2.5 billion people in the world, and I would like to change their lives. And this is my story, and this is my provocation. Do they get to ask questions?
Ask a question. So I have a question that if you could relate to the audience, some of the problems you had convincing Walmart. It seems like such a easy sell to get them to do this. So the learning process as you went along making this happen.
So I went to Walmart 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, for a very different reason. First of all, what does it mean to go to Walmart? That's like I just said, I went to China and I know everything about China. Because how do you know, Walmart is huge. So I actually knew somebody, I'd worked with him and he was in the right place at the right time. I went to him and I said, listen, I want every Walmart store to be a pickup point for cash. Because a lot of people don't have bank accounts and they need money. And when we give them money, I don't know where to move the money. How do I give them the money? Because I wanted to move money electronically to a bank account. They don't have a bank account. So I went to Walmart to say, can I have them pick up cash in their stores? And that's how the discussion started. And I kept going to them for 3-4 years. And they tried many different things before they came to us. Because conventional wisdom was that what we were doing was not validated at that time. And they were doing all kinds of budgeting and things like that. And none of them were adopted by more than 1.5% of the employees. They came to us when every other effort failed. And they still had problems of retention and turnover and theft in stores and so on. And people would quit out. And you know, Uber and Lyft were just taking their employees left and right because they would rather drive for Uber and Lyft than to work at Walmart. Finally, in last year, they wanted to change their turnover numbers. And they wanted to do wellness for their employees. And that's when they agreed. Many, many different arguments.
Okay. So any other questions? Okay. So I got one here. I think you have one on that side. Let's take this one first.
I wanted to ask, what kind of information do you require? Sorry, I'm over here.
Oh.
Yeah, I was just curious, what kind of information do you require to have access to these
Time and
accounts?
attendance. So read-only access. So I'm connected into time and attendance, hours you worked, clock in, clock out.
So this
data.
is already information that workers are already given, yeah. Do you sell any of this information to anybody?
Do I look the kind of guy who'll sell it to anyone?
It wasn't yet. I'm not trying to presume anything. I'm
not a
accusing you of
lead gen.
anything.
A lot of people come to me. I want to give them a loan. And you can imagine what I say to them. And I'm not lead gen for anyone. I want to be the American Express for the poor people of America. Whatever that means, membership.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Because when you start talking about, giving more access, that's great. And I mean, also there's all kinds of pros and cons by gaining more access and connecting people more to their bank accounts, and information is obviously a big
banks
deal.
want us to open accounts for them and want to give us, like the Google business, the indirect revenue, like the Credit Karma business. Like you get these free credit reports. Basically, they're buying you. They've bought you. You're the, basically they're using you. So no, we don't do that.
You said that Walmart is one of the companies. Is this a specific, like each company signs up for it and then it's available to their employees, or is this a universal thing that okay.
Company has to sign up? We don't go direct to consumer.
Oh, wow. I'm wondering what the majority of your revenue comes from, because is it with the partnership with the company you're in? Is that where the majority of your revenue comes from?
Companies don't pay us anything. We are free.
So how does your
employee pays? Employee pays $5 per pay period. So, and you can use it one time, 2 times. It's like for $5, you can get $100, $200, $300, and you can pay the bills. You get a Visa card. We have our own Visa card. If you like it, you can use it. If you don't want it.
So would you consider yourself an online bank?
Not a bank. Hence, not a bank.
All right, but that, okay.
So because the banks have an abusive relationship with the lower income workers, we don't call ourselves a bank. We are not a depositor. The only thing we don't do, we're not a depositor. We move money into their account and we settle with their employee. Over time, we could become that. We could become a bank.
Hi, here. So can we both agree that we live in a high consumption society? Could you agree?
I think I think we do. We have far more than we need. In that sense, yes. But I'm not sure if I fall for that argument because we do what makes us happy.
True.
So if we did not consume, it's not clear to me if we would be happy. So a lot of unhappy people dressed like Gandhi is not going to help. Right? This is, I'm just using a very succinct example here, not to disrespect anyone. So I don't know.
And this is my actual question: is how do you control other variables such as overconsumption? I know you spoke about willpower, and the majority of the people actually taking a
very
fraction
important
of the,
question,
but
very important question.
so because if someone's allowed access to income earned early, I personally think that's a recipe for disaster in the long run.
Early to what?
To the, I guess, to the pay period.
Who decided that? Early to respect, like, there is no law which says that this is, as long as you've earned it. So first of all, I know what you need to know, what you asked for. Let me answer that. We do not allow 100% of money, so it's 50% of your net earned. So you can't get more than 500, and you can't get more than 50%. So your paycheck is always going to be 50% for sure. The money that you were borrowing from others in the between paycheck phase and paying a lot of fees and the overdrafts and all that you don't need to. So you can never get into trouble. It's like having a training wheel all the time. It's a guardrail. So that's one reason. Second reason is, which I think is very strong, because when people say early with respect to what? Because this is bi-weekly or monthly some kind of mathematical number? Even IRS doesn't care. It says you pay my taxes quarterly if you're a small business, and if you have more than $100,000 owed in taxes, then you have to pay every 3 days. The way we are, so when your salary has a deduction of taxes, it doesn't mean it's gone to the IRS immediately. The employer would do it in every 3 months or every month or every 3 days, depending on how large they are. So this whole thing about when you are paid, the when you are paid is totally in control of the employer. If the employer feels that I can't raise your wages, I can't change your taxes, then the employer has another variable that they can use. I can change the timing of pay and still get you to be retained and more engaged at work. That's all. It's another variable.
Then what is the timing of pay in your?
As long as you've earned it, you should have it accessible.
Okay, fair enough.
So to me, that is and because people are very judgmental about it, I really think that they should be able to access anything that they like as long as they've earned it. But some employers don't have the money, so I tell them I give the money to the employee. We are the ones fronting the money to their employees. The employer doesn't pay, they love it.
Clever, thank you.
Clever it is.
One more question?
Is your company profitable?
Almost. We are break even.
Is there anything you're doing right now to make it profitable that's different from how you guys are operating?
So we've raised a lot of money. We've raised, just a few days ago, we raised $20 million. A lot of people think that we are very cool. I want to build it bigger. I want to get to 10 million people in the US. In order to get to 10 million people, I need to grow very fast. So it's kind of the Amazon conundrum. Amazon is not profitable, but Amazon grows very fast. So we've decided to grow very fast. So that's what we are doing. If we chose to break even and become a lifestyle company, like enough money and I can take a large salary, we can do it today. And just by $5 at a time. Yes.
What is the number of people that actively use your service per
Officially, we
month or
don't give
say?
the numbers, but I'll tell you that it's close to 1 million, more than 500,000, but not million.
Gotcha.
So If you could recommend a book to people of our age, what book would it be, and why would you recommend it to us?
There are so many. I read a lot. I recommended one that everybody should read, which is Man's Search for Meaning, which is Viktor Frankl. Another one that I think everyone should read, if you haven't read, and this is more contemporary because I know you'll read it if you haven't read it. It's more anything written by Hariri, Sapiens, Homo Deus, the new one, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, all three. So Hariri was it's important, guys and girls here. You got to read that one. It's called Sapiens, the first one. The second one is called, that's the last 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 years. Then Homo Deus is the next 10,000 years. And now he's just come out last week with a book called 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. He's an Israeli anthropologist. And those are obscure books that, one of them, the original one he had written in Israel, nobody published it. He's like the J.K. Rowling. he's the new sort of equivalent of that. So I would recommend those. And if you really need more, you can always ask me.
So thank you for this wonderful talk. I hope to see the rest of you at the Barstool meeting. It's at Flames, and the pizza's already being served. It's hot, and there'll be beer and drinks there. Can I have a warm round of applause for our speaker?